Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual, and it feels a little bit like Groundhog Day on my show today. I've been talking for the last few days about the incompetence of this government, the ineptitude of this government, the fact that they say things that are provably not true. Provably not true. Really easy, like a quick Google search, and it's provably false. But here's the first one. Minister Haydu, says that if we all stopped moving for 2 weeks and nobody talked to anybody for 2 weeks and we just stayed put, in fact, we would see this virus die. That's the reality, according to Ms. Haydu, on the importance of physical distancing. And we're going to hear her talk about that. But that is not true, especially when the government continues to land flights from China daily. This one's on time. Actually, it's a little early, 25 minutes early, right? Landing from Shanghai to Vancouver. So how does that fit into your holier than thou, talking down to us, just stay put framework? Because it doesn't work, right? Here we go.
And maybe Jean-Yves can translate this for me in French so I don't sound like a 7-year-old. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if we don't all act together and appropriately act and take...
I'll just note my 7-year-old can say the word appropriately.
The social distancing measures that public health has prescribed to us, make sure that we are physically distancing ourselves, listen to public health. All that does is lengthen the amount of time that will we be in this situation. In fact, one of the things that I read recently,
she said there, and it's really strange to position it this way. If you listen to public health and social distance, we will be in the situation that we're in longer. Without really explaining what that means, right? What the alternatives are. This government has been really, really bad at explaining why they were completely ignoring this thing all through January and February, and then March 7th even, saying there's risk to Canadians is low, carry on with your everyday life. And then on March 11th, this thing's serious, lockdown. And we've been in that lockdown ever since. And it's not like this is costing nothing. It's not like it's a nice vacation or anything to that effect. Everybody is stressed. Everybody is out of their usual routines. Kids are out of school. There is a major consequence to this. $100 billion deficit, right? And no real path for Justin Trudeau to roll the money out. There are people, Mr. Scheer, the leader of the opposition, believes that the Liberals don't even know how they would do what they said they would do. And what they said they would do, they can't do because they didn't write the law properly, so they have to recall the House of Commons. Whoops. Right? And it's not like whoops didn't cost money either. Right? The coordination to get people into the House of Commons was done to minimize the risk of spread of the virus. And so now they have to do all that again. And I'm sure everybody loves driving to Ottawa. Right? It's it's tone deaf. And the next part of her sentence, the next part of her little press conference here, well, here we go.
That I thought was fascinating was that if we all stopped moving for 2 weeks and nobody talked to anybody for 2 weeks and we all just stayed put, in fact, we would see this virus die. That is the reality. The virus needs hosts to continue to infect in order to continue to grow. And so
we're going to fly in people from China, and we'll just let them go, and they'll have to self-quarantine for 14 days, but they can land in the airport and they can have contact with a bunch of Canadians who are then going to go home and see their families who are self-quarantining. So presumably you might have some small new clusters, right? Is that worth the threat? Is that worth locking down everybody else, but having people like that? They're flying into Canadian airspace now. Is that worth the risk? Why tell Canadians all you have to do is just lock down? Just listen to us. Just stay indoors. Don't talk to anybody. Close your mouth. Close your nose. It's insanity. It's stupid. Andrew Scheer says the same thing. Then why did your government refuse to restrict international travel in the early days of this crisis? In February, Minister Haydu said that closing the border was not effective at all. And in March, the border measures are highly ineffective. Canadians deserve clarity and leadership. Yeah, this is a mess. This is an absolute mess. This is a mess. Here's going back to February 11th. Still a lot of discrimination out there. Ministers urge against spreading coronavirus stigma in Toronto's Chinatown. I remember this. I remember talking to people who said to me they were going to enjoy the SARS Fest like deals in Toronto, that they could go down and enjoy the hotels and get a good deal because they want to restart tourism. That person has since changed their tune. Here's exactly the same article, but Global News is doing it. Ministers' mayor push back against coronavirus stigma in Toronto's Chinatown neighborhood, February 11th. Here is another one, coronavirus live updates. Government's still waiting on Chinese approval to evacuate Canadians. This is way back in February 3rd, but this is Miss Haydu saying, however, if a passenger shows symptoms before getting on a plane, that person will not be allowed to fly back to Canada, Patty Haydu said. Life has become difficult in Wuhan, Haydu said, with a lockdown of the city that bans travel to school, work, stores, and everyday places. In response to the U.S. decision to declare a health emergency last week, Haydu, clarified that the same response is not needed in Canada. Fast forward a couple of months, and look where we are. And because they didn't do anything, because they protested for people calling them to do something, calling them to respond for this. And they said, no, it's not. We don't need to do anything. Don't worry about it. It's fine. March 12th, we knew many coronavirus patients are passing the virus before showing symptoms, a new study found. Yet another reason for social distancing, right? This is March 12th. We're in April now, and we've had our economy shut down. March 11th was the day the lockdown started. The schools were closed and other businesses, and then over the weekend, businesses took note, etc. And this is very impactful. And it wasn't until March 12th did they even start saying that pre-symptomatic people could be shedding virus. So why the late start on the information? Why the slow rollout of very important information for people? We could have contained this thing, and it's not containable now. It's out now. But previously, in January and February, we could have made some meaningful gains. We could have had a situation where our schools weren't shut, where our businesses weren't shut. And instead, we've got a situation where there's out of control. Well, I mean, as long as everybody stays in their house, it appears to be not out of control. But how long is that tenable, right? Are you willing to stay in your house until Christmas? How about next Christmas? What's the pathway out of this? That's what leadership is, to say, don't worry, this is temporary, and this is the date we're going to restart, and this is the plan how we're going to do it. This leadership is running around like a chicken with its head cut off, and it has no idea what it's doing. It's just like the legalization of marijuana, right? It seems straightforward, and they can complicate it and call you racist while they're doing it. It's really strange. Here's the article, okay? This is the 12th. Actually, I think I've done this article. I'm just going to use it as the headline. So we can see that coronavirus is spreading before people have symptoms. And here's another one. Experts tell the White House coronavirus can spread through talking or even just breathing. This one's new. This was reported Thursday, April 2nd. That's today at 9:02 a.m. A prestigious scientific panel told the White House Wednesday night that research shows coronavirus can be spread not just by sneezes or coughs, but also just by talking or possibly just by breathing. Quote, while current coronavirus-specific research is limited, the results of available studies are consistent with aerosolization of virus from normal breathing, according to the letter written by Dr. Harvey Feinberg, chairman of a committee within the National Academy of Sciences. Feinberg told CNN that he will start wearing a mask when he goes to the grocery store. I'm not going to wear a surgical mask because clinicians need those, said Feinberg, former dean of the Harvard School of Public Health. But I have a nice Western-style bandana I might wear, or I have a balaclava. I have some pretty nice options. I wear an N95 drywalling mask. That's what I wear when I go to the grocery store. Here's Andrew Scheer expressing concerns that the liberal government can actually deliver on the promises they've made. And this is the quote, and then I'll let you hear him speak. We have a lot of concerns about the availability of the government to actually implement what they're saying. The government is talking about a 6-week timeline before businesses are able to access these types of programs, said Andrew Scheer. And yeah, originally when this started, they were saying money would flow by April 6th. And now they're saying you can apply by April 6th and the money will flow soon. So, I mean, this could be May before people get money. And Andrew Scheer says this is a three paycheck event, at least. So is communism the cure to this virus? Is that how we cure this? Let's triple down on communism. Everybody stay in your house. Stay scared. Dear leader Justin Trudeau will lead us out of this. I say that with a big question mark in my voice, in case you didn't hear that. Here's Andrew Scheer.
Principle to show that a company, in order to receive government funds, can show some type of impact of this pandemic is something that we would generally support. But we have a lot of concerns about the ability of the government to actually implement what they're saying. We found out today that the government is talking about a 6-week timeline before businesses are able to access these types of programs. We're 2 months into this crisis. The government has had weeks to prepare a response, to see what's coming. We've seen the impacts in other countries. This is going to be 3 pay periods at least for many Canadians who otherwise for many Canadians who are going to be relying on this type of program. So, we went back to the House of Commons last week in good faith, hoping that they were going to do their homework, come to Canadians with a plan that was well thought out and ready to be delivered. And so far, we're not seeing a lot of signs of that.
It sounds like from the federal government.
And so, can this Liberal government get done what they've said they will get done? Provincial governments are limiting movement. This is somebody taking a picture between Ottawa and Quebec. Ontario and Quebec, from Ottawa going to Montreal. It says, this shutdown has become personal. My mom lives across the river in the province of Quebec. I live in Ottawa, the province of Ontario. Today, they began checkpoints at the bridge, stopping all non-essential travel. My son and I can't visit with my 83-year-old mother. And some people said, well, they shouldn't be going to retirement homes anyway. And I said, well, who said that it was in a retirement home? Maybe they're just going to visit their mom. And is that acceptable? Is that something that's okay till Christmas? Or next Christmas? What's the pathway out of this? And that's the question our leadership needs to be answering. Not what we should have done in February and January, because, those questions have been asked, answered, ignored, and told they're racist and to stand in a corner, right? So, that's where we're at on that. And, well, I think this is going to continue. Fines will be in place. Police in Ontario clarify whether they're issuing tickets to cars with multiple passengers. I did a show earlier in the week called Travel Bans in Ontario, ? And this is a follow-up to that. So this is, they're checking. They're checking. I'm not going to read this right now. I realized I did a 20-minute video yesterday, but I'm just going to finish off with this, and I've got lots to do, so I've got to get going. Ms. Haiti says, we likely did not have enough stockpiled PPE, personal protective equipment, adding the governments have been underfunding public health preparedness for decades. Okay, we're going to hear her say it, and then we're going to look at, the preparedness after SARS, which is not decades ago.
Did we not have enough in the stockpile? Have we not started distributing anything from it?
I don't have the exact numbers because the numbers change, as you can imagine, day to day as we dispense equipment across the country. To your question about whether we had enough, no, we likely did not have enough. I think federal governments for decades have been underfunding things like public health preparedness. And I would say that obviously governments all across the world are in the same exact situation.
So she did say federal governments, and I'll show you a provincial government that didn't. But here's after SARS, they had a whole bunch of medical equipment stockpiled, blah 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 blah. But she did say federal, so I'll let her off the hook here. But it's still interesting trying to say, oh yeah, it was all those people decades before us that didn't prepare, and it's not us, it's not our fault. I just think that that's the hallmark of this government, right? It's not us, but we'll fix it now, and we'll fix it with a plan that'll help everybody but you. I don't know, from the COVID testing to the things that they roll out, just overall, it seems to prioritize people who don't, people who don't necessarily need it, but wouldn't it make sense to do rapid mass testing in hotspots to minimize the spread rather than prioritizing Aboriginal reserves, right? I think that an old folks home in Toronto would need more testing than a reserve, but the reserves were included in the first groupings of testing, and I just don't understand why. Are they at a higher risk? If they're at a higher risk, why are they at a higher risk? Are there a lot of Chinese people visiting reserves? I don't understand. I just don't understand the mental gymnastics other than to pander to their base, right? So, and it just seems like that's the hallmark of this government, right? Ineffective plans that pander to their base and are easily disproven, for their effectiveness. That's what I think. Oh man, 14 minutes. See, I told you I didn't have much time. Okay, thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com, check out CanadaReport.co, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.